very, very happy to be a part of this really interesting event, and we're glad you're all here. If you'd like to be added to our very occasional email list, throw your card on my desk and I'll put you on our list. Thank you so much for being here.
Thanks, Janine, and thank you guys at Woven Accents for having us here, and welcome everyone. Thank you for coming. This is a very lively, exciting crowd, and thanks for those of you who came over from Design Within Reach and those that are just joining us now. I'm Darren Gold, and I'm wearing a few hats today because I am the chairman of the West Hollywood Design District, which is putting on DIEM, which Mallory so aptly described as the thinking man's design symposium earlier. I am also obviously moderating this panel, and I am a retailer myself and am a retail consultant, so I actually have, maybe I might even jump into the panelist side of things, moderate myself on the panel because I have some personal experience with retail. And that's what we're here to talk about today. As you all know, the topic is, does Main Street matter? And we have three people with different perspectives on that who come from different aspects of wholesale, retail, brand, fairs, a little bit of mixture of everything. So first what I'm going to do is introduce our panelists, and then we're going to talk for 25, 30 minutes, and then we'll take questions for 10, 15 minutes from the audience. So first, I have Coriander Friend, who is a set designer and is a vintage dealer and the co-founder, correct? Creative director of Parachute Market, which is a design fair, a design fair that most recently happened about 6 weeks ago at JF Chen. That's Coriander. Mark Musa, who is the Force, the creative director, the founder of Arteriors, which is a 27-year-old lighting accessory provider who happened to have a showroom store just a block down the way. So welcome, Mark. And Matt Young, who is the co-founder and creative director of two clothing lines, Grover and Wellen. Out of full disclosure, I have carried Wellen in my store, so I have had experience. And Matt sells his line not only directly to retailers, but has online shopping as well, and had a program for a while that was a subscription program where they were mailing out monthly boxes to people, and I guess they're going to start that up again. And what's interesting, actually, is in talking to the panelists before we sat down here, there's a lot of flux happening in their businesses, which I think really reflects what's happening in retail right now, because they're all changing their business models, adding businesses, taking away businesses, and changing the way they do business. So I'd like to kind of start out by asking each of you to talk about what your business is, where it came from, what the changes are, why you've chosen to be either online, sell only to the trade, sell directly to consumers. You know, give us a little bit of background on all of that, on your take on where you're at now with your business. You can start, Coriander.
Ladies first. Okay, so I started, Parachute Market was born out of a retail attempt. I was collecting vintage. I'm a set designer by trade, and therefore, started collecting a lot of things. And so then I decided I wanted to try to do a brick and mortar vintage collection. And while I was doing that, I was asked to curate a pop-up, a holiday pop-up downtown in the Arts District. And in doing so, I became really fascinated with the idea of a temporary marketplace, i.e. pop-up, whatever you want to call it. And with my background in set design of doing a process of creating something, storytelling, putting it up, letting people experience it, and then taking it down and doing something entirely different, it really was a part of that. That was really natural for me. So that's how Parachute Market was born. And I was looking around. I know a lot of the vintage dealers in town. And I started to get to know a lot of the new designers. And I realized that there isn't really there wasn't a design fair. There are lots of wonderful fairs happening. There are craft fairs, and there are, a lot of good things happening. What I didn't see happening was a curated kind of new experimental design fair for new design and also vintage, because I like to pair the two together, because I think most people are interested in both. So that's how Parachute Market came about. And each market, it's very gypsy, and each market has a different conceptual theme. So all of the people involved in the show, even though they're an individual installation, they all are relating to a concept that we build the show around. And each time we do the show, it changes, so that I'm sort of preemptively looking at what keeps people interested and what keeps design interesting to look at, is that it's not a template. It's not a cookie cutter show. I encourage people not to use white walls. I like to kind of mix it up. So
you're really creating an experience. Which I think is important in this discussion, is that, not to interrupt your introduction of yourself,
please interrupt.
I think that is one of the things that is really important in terms of Main Street versus online versus, is creating that experience. And it sounds like that's really what you're doing, is creating a very specific experience.
I think for me, that's the most important part to me. So yes, in a nutshell.
Great, thanks. Mark.
Well, actually, when you mentioned 27-year-old company, I started the company when I was 5. So,
so that means you're 32?
Yes, perfect. Thank you. No, Arteriors is what I consider a great line of lighting and occasional furniture, accessories, and wall decor. We have 1,200 products that are transitional in nature, that lends itself to transitional towards traditional and transitional towards contemporary. And we do all types of materials, all kinds of looks. And we opened up the store in February, just a block away on the corner of Melrose and Huntley. Wanted to say thank you for being here. I'm actually very flattered to be here. Appreciate it very much. But our business has really come full circle. Back in '87, when we started the company, we sold to retailers, because that was pretty much out there. 6 years ago, we made a huge effort to get in touch with the interior designer. And it was really because the face of retail was changing. The internet, something called the internet, what is that? And so we decided to really push the interior designer, and very happy that we've done so. And really, the store around the corner, or a block away, is really to make Arteriors, the Arteriors brand, accessible to those that don't have access to it. Now, online is one thing, but we felt like that, you still touch and feel. You get really a great feel of who we are and what we are, and the storefront speaks volumes for us globally as a brand.
So you have your hands in sort of to the trade, to the consumer, you have your hands in all of it a little bit online, although you can't directly click and shop on a cart online, but people can see the whole collection, see the costs, all of that online.
Yes, we launched a new website. It's been about a year, and everybody can get on. It's not password protected. And so a consumer can get on, download tear sheets, look at retail pricing, look up retail locators in terms of stores. And it's really the interest in the brand. We've got, from that website, we've got 2 million page views a month.
Wow.
And so it's not designers, not only designers, but consumers. And we feel like what's happening is, as we build our brand from a consumer standpoint, that they download tear sheets and take it to their interior designer and say, hey, this is what I like. This is, and actually the consumers that walk in the store find the brand incredibly enticing. And one of their comments is, I have to get my decorator involved. So it's really to make accessible to all types of people.
Great, thanks. Matt.
Yeah, so I started a surf company in 2007 called Wellen, probably the worst time to ever start a clothing company. And kind of slowly grew it. I used to make surfboards in my parents' garage when I was in high school, and I was in college at the time, and basically decided that surfboards was a really easy way to turn a lot of money into a very little amount of money. And so we then, we being me, we basically started making apparel and kind of like learning that. I wasn't going to school for fashion and kind of self-taught, and grew the brand, started doing printed tees, which is like the only way to do it. And then you keep growing, and now we are sold in countries around the world. We've done licensing deals with Uniqlo. We sell an American Rag, as well as we sell in Stephen Allen. And then in 2011, I was doing a window display at American Rag, and I asked their head buyer why he never started a line, and then was born Grover. And the two of us started that line together, which we pretty much exclusively sold in American Rag, which is basically a ready-to-wear basics line of T-shirts and sweatshirts and things like that. What's the best-selling thing? It's like everyone goes into that store, and so many stores like it, and they want to leave with something, but they can't afford anything, and so they leave with a white T-shirt because it's $40, and it's cheaper than the $300 white T-shirt. And so I think that's kind of where Grover was born, is like ready-to-wear basics for a guy that's made in LA, that's not pretentious, that's just easy. And so since kind of grown the brand, we've originally only sold to retailers. And so a couple years ago, we started selling online, which wasn't successful at all. And in the last 6 months with Wellen, we've basically started to really sell online, which has been really successful. I think our big push moving forward is going to be retail. We really want to do retail, our own store in our own way, which I think is interesting because so often kind of like this panel is retail dead, per se.
Right, and that's sort of the crux of the question, and I think I'm going to go in right for the kill. And let's start at the end. I mean, is retail, brick and mortar, still important? And are retail stores still part of our future? I mean, you hear so much about online business is growing so much more quickly than brick and mortar. You hear, people are closing stores all the time. But you also see now many online brands that started as online are opening retail experiences. So it seems like there might even be a swing back the other way. So maybe let's start with you, Mark, and see what you think about, is Main Street important? Is a brick and mortar store still part of the future of this business?
I think it's incredibly important. That's why we're here in LA. I never ever dreamed that we would be in LA, first of all. Secondly, to be on the street, to be on Melrose, and to be in a location that we have. And it's really, it's 2,000 feet, so it's a very curated portion of the line in terms of touching, feeling, understanding who we are as a brand. The storefront, the appearance of the store, the people that work there. Thank you, Tisha. But it's valuable to our brand. And in future, down the road, we have a store in New York, but it's in a To The Trade building. We're opening up Dallas in January in the Dallas Design District, and we'll probably look into other major cities down the road. So I think it's very, very important to our brand.
Well, that begs another question. Here I see that a lot of showrooms that were primarily to the trade have either moved down to the street from the design buildings, or I have just become more open to the consumer. I mean, is that, you said you're opening in a To The Trade building in New York, but here it's more of a consumer-friendly location. Is there a reason behind that, or do you think that, now you have to be open to the consumer and you cannot simply be to the trade?
I think that you have to reach your customer, and we're all customers, whether we're an interior designer, whether a consumer, whether we have a retail store, and we're all consumers. And the way you reach is we have a catalog that we print every year. It's kind of a coffee table book. I laugh about it, but it's about 450 pages.
Is it like the Restoration Hardware catalog?
Yeah. Well, no. I do love trees, so no. So we do that. Plus, we have our online, of course, our website. And then we have our sales reps that call on interior designers. But it's important to reach everybody and use, as things evolve, I think something that's not known today will be known tomorrow. I don't know what it is, but it's not too long ago that the internet wasn't around. It's when I started the business, the fax machine was just coming through, and so I think there's going to be, through technology, other ways to reach the consumer. I think the handheld mobile device, they're saying that all purchases, or not all purchases, 50% of purchases will be done on a mobile device here in a couple of years.
Wow.
It's incredible.
Well, I think that points out that it's important to be everywhere. I mean, there's no one sort of answer anymore, and you can't just rely on one channel to reach the consumer. Coriander, what do you think about retail and brick and mortar, and is it important? I mean, you do a lot of temporary marketplaces, and a lot of the vendors that you work with probably don't have brick and mortar stores, so that's their only chance to experience that kind of interaction. So what do you think of all of that?
Yeah, I think that definitely is. My experience is more with people, designers who don't have they don't have their own space, and some of them don't even aren't even really selling at any space at all. So they're still creating, and they're selling direct to their clients and everything else. But I think that about retail, the question of it is, I don't think that retail is dead, and I don't think it's about retail or brick and mortar not being valid. I think it's about stores that are closing. Perhaps it's because they need to, or they haven't reinvented what the consumer needs, because I think we just have a much more sophisticated consumer. So it's more about the experience of the retail than the retail. Like, the retail, I think, is absolutely valid, 100%. I'm sort of a dedicated Luddite. I really like to be in person. I'm really tactile. I don't really shop online. I like to look at things online. I think online is great to know what's out there. It gives us that tool, but I'm not going to buy something that I need to put on my body or sit on or touch or feel or have in my space. Really, more often than not, I'm not going to buy it online. That's just me. But I really think it's more about the designer, because I get asked this too, like, will Parachute do a direct or just to the trade? We've been considering doing 2 days for the trade and then opening it up to the public. And I think that with no disrespect to the designer whatsoever, that the lines have blurred a little bit, and the consumer is so much more active in the design process and what they want to buy, and they're so, they're not just turning it over to their designer, they're, wanting to participate, so that I think we have to reinvent the environment in which we're viewing design and kind of how that feels, and it is about a little bit about community and concept.
Well, because you and I were having the discussion that so much of sort of having that experience, or the brick and mortar, is so that you can document it for the online world. And it's maybe not even about the shopping per se, but it's about, the community and sort of being able to say that you were there. Or
Completely. And that's something that I'm exploring as an event. Because the designer who's a part of that event wants to sell, so there's sort of a change happening, and a really interesting time to look at how do you bring in a community to come and be a part of that event, but also respond as, a patron, and actually go there with the intention of, purchasing something from a collection, because it can become this kind of like, hipster zeitgeist. We're all there and we're all Instagramming, but who's buying? Because I have a responsibility to the people who come and participate in my fair. And for us, it's getting better and better. And I think it really is about who you reach out to and the community that actually shows up.
Well, I often wonder that even about regular retail stores. Are people really, there's lots of people going there, looking at it, but are they really buying, or are they, buying online? And, some of the brands that were online that have open stores, they don't even sell in the store. They are simply using the store as a brand mechanism or as an opportunity for people to touch and feel, but they can't actually purchase there. And that sort of leads me to you, Matt. You said that your sort of goal is to open a retail store. Is that something, is that a financial thing? Is that a brand thing? Is it a combination of those things?
I think being in the fashion space, it's so hard to get shelf space in retailers. I mean, unless you're, double RL or something like that, you're not getting like a full section in the store where people understand what your brand is. And so oftentimes you sell in these great retailers, but you're selling like a pair of trunks in our case, because we fill that little niche that they need. They need swim trunks. We're a swim brand. We're higher than Quicksilver, so we're better. They're going to pick us up. And so I think, though, we find that when stores really invest in us and they buy, a lot of stuff across multiple categories and really create looks and collections, our brand shines, and customers come in and they buy it and they seek it out because we don't sell everywhere, whether that be Grover or whether that be Wellen. And I think that anytime you can create and curate a basically experience, like you're saying, where you can sell this bigger idea that people can't find in another place, that's different, that isn't everywhere. You basically are, I think doing retail the way that everyone does retail would be stupid, because everyone's doing it, everyone's competing for the same thing, and it's not working for a lot of them. I think doing retail differently and offering we joke about opening the downtown LA surf shop geared towards gentlemen surfers with Oxfords and coats and surfboards and tees. That would probably be successful. Opening just a surf shop would probably not. And I think how can you create interesting retail that is one facet of a bigger business that involves wholesaling to stores, that involves selling online, and creates a way for the diehard to really want to come and experience what you're doing.
Well, that's interesting, because I was just thinking, it seems that for the model to work of that kind of retail, it does have to be part of a bigger picture of wholesale, and that seems very similar to you. You're not just there as a store, you're also a wholesaler, you're also selling online. You're
Totally.
That just opening your doors as a retail store probably isn't going to work. It has to be part of a
You're
bigger...
creating an experience, and that's an important thing to do, because then you now are part of a conversation. You're starting a conversation. You're not just saying, hey, our doors are open, come buy stuff.
Coriander, it looks like you have something to say.
Yeah, no, I do. Well, what's interesting about that too is that for Parachute Market, it's yes, we're a design fair, but we also, and pulling off 2 huge shows a year is a kind of a full-time job. But at the same time, when I think about retail, I look at, my interest is in what everybody else is doing, and I'm interested in creating proprietary goods, but my feeling is also there are so many good proprietary goods happening. How can I help? My talent is helping to display that in an interesting way. So one of the interesting things that I see with retail and creating the experience is, as Parachute Market wants to actually, we've talked with a few brands and different people about creating the Parachute Market experience for their retail concept. So, kind of being, I want to maintain the gypsy status and keep moving. And so it's exciting to think that I could, that we are going to work with other brands to help create and collaborate on experiences so that you can keep the retail going and changing. Because I think that that's really what we need in our time of being exposed to so much, is that people really need change. And so
Totally. We joked about before we all started speaking is we should do a surf vintage interesting parachute market, and I think you talk about doing you talk about doing
We're
retail.
We're doing business up here.
Totally. You talk about doing retail from my standpoint, where I'm trying to reach consumers and I'm trying to differentiate my brands, both of them. And then we talk about Parachute Market, and now all of a sudden we have this interesting reason for people to come into our future store, an interesting way to make something different, and now a bigger conversation that never happened.
Yeah.
And I think that's what gets people to buy, because there's now something unique that's special. I also think that when you're not at a race to the bottom for pricing, and you can really have the luxury to sell goods for what they're worth, I think there's something to be said for that. And especially in apparel, I think more so than furniture and lighting, it's really, really difficult. And that's maybe me being ignorant and not knowing. But I just feel like when you're selling a t-shirt, we did this monthly subscription box, which we closed after a year. And it's because the most often times the complaint was, well, why would I subscribe to your $50 a month, which included shipping? You got all this like custom gear made for you. It was awesome. But like, the problem was that people would email us and say, well, I could just go to Target. Like, these shirts aren't any better than the 3-pack I get for $9.99 at Target. And our response was always very nice. But what we were thinking was that, like, you can't even compare what we're doing to Target. Like, we know the people who sew our shirts in downtown, and we know the factory's family that dyes them, and we know where our fabric comes from because we flew up to the Central Valley and we watched the cotton being grown. Well, if you're comparing us to what Target's doing or what Walmart's doing, I mean, like, you win. Just unsubscribe, because like we can never beat them. And so I think like it's a interesting play of like not racing to the bottom as well, because we will never win.
Mark?
Well, I think the grass is always greener on the other side. So, but I think the big deal is the storytelling, and it's not only communicating verbally what it is, but also in the store in terms of merchandising, looks, but also the story of the metals in our perspective, the metals, the finishes on the metal, the finishes on the glass, where they come from, the craftsmanship is a huge, huge thing. And something online, you can only speak so much. I mean, the little verbiage, maybe somebody's going to read a sentence or two, but when you go into the store, you get the really feel of it.
Coriander, you had mentioned, you want to stay as a gypsy, and that sort of brings up the pop-up question. Everyone seems to be doing a pop-up. It's especially this time of year. It's like holiday pop-up. You kind of can't escape them. Is the pop-up still something that is important? Is it overused? Is it, I want to kind of get all your thoughts. I know you had done a pop-up before, so you have a little bit of experience with that, and I'm wondering if something that, on your way to retail, is that something that you would consider as sort of a step on that way to retail?
I think that the pop-up definitely is, it's a little bit overused in many ways, but I really think that it's a valuable and very, very valid tool, and I think it's more about getting back to the quality of having a temporary experience that is, and it often is kind of a collaboration, like a pop-up. It's a brand going into a different brand space, or it's two brands coming together, or, like our surf parachute show that's going to be amazing.
Next March.
Yeah, totally. I think that if it maintains the spirit of quality and collaboration, like I'm kind of terminally unique, and I like to think that Parachute Market is, and I also agree with what you said, not racing to the bottom, but also maintaining that, this is it's higher end design, it's higher quality, things are going to cost more. This isn't, for me, if the pop-up's just about getting sales or like pumping your brand, I think that people are gonna see through it, So I really do feel that it's more valid than ever, and I'm very excited to pursue it. What I'm trying to do is to pursue it with a lot of quality, a lot of thought, and a lot of concept. So that's and something that is really well thought out. And I just value my audience, really, at the end of the day, because the audience is going to tell me the truth. So I know kind of who I'm speaking to and if they're going to listen, and so I have to bring that.
Cool. Mark?
So my experience with pop-ups, my daughter, she's 5, sorry. my daughter and I, we went to India and we bought a bunch of jewelry and one-offs and doors and cabinets and things. We brought it back to Dallas. And so my merchandising team, we found a space for 3 days, and my merchandising team came in and made it look like a store, and like a permanent store. So everybody's coming in and go, well, I'll just come back next week. And I go, no, wait, you got to buy now. And we had the wrong product. We had furniture, and people typically don't go to a pop-up and want to buy a piece of furniture. So it was called Mac and Mark. My daughter's name is Mackenzie, and it was a great thing. But I think for local craftsmen to bring something to market, and it's more of a flea market-ish kind of thing, I think that works.
Well, it's funny because I had a similar experience because I had done my store as a series of pop-ups, and there was a fine line between making it feel too much like a store, and it does impact the way people think of it. Like, oh, this is a store, I can come back, I don't have to buy anything, and the whole sort of pop-up temporary thing is you need to make it clear that it really is temporary, so you can't over design your pop-up or make it look too much like a real store because it confuses the customer a little bit. Any thoughts of pop-ups for you?
We did a pop-up on Abbot Kinney, which was really interesting. And we did it last Christmas for 3 days. It was raining the whole time. And we still did well, which was like a very like encouraging sign. But I think for us, it was really an exciting time to like, I worked it the whole time with our head of marketing, and we basically just sat there and we didn't tell anyone that we work, for corporate. But basically, we watched people interact with the product, watch them like see what they bought, and people bought all of the items that all the retailers said that this won't sell in our store. And it was really encouraging because that was like our big vision is like we're going to sell this idea, and none of our stores bought it. And then we put it in our pop-up, and that's all people bought. And so it really gave us the encouragement to keep pushing that direction, which we did. That's become very successful for us with kind of like the gentleman surfer idea. And so I think pop-ups are a great way to test market sometimes, just like see what people think of you.
Yeah, and to do it your way. It's funny because as a buyer and a merchant, it's like I have people from the brand are always saying, "Oh, this is our top seller. That's our top seller." And I'm always like, "Oh, really? Like I don't to who? To other retailers?" So I love that interaction with the customer, and I think when you don't have a presence on the street, it's hard from online to have that response from the consumer. So even just for that, just to see how the consumer is responding to your product, it's a good thing. Well, we are now to the question time. I mean, I think we could keep going on and on forever, but we'd like to take some questions from the audience. Does anyone have a question?
Does it have to be a question, or can it be sort of a comment?
It can be a comment. I mean, a short comment.
So I'll just say my background is retail also. I was a retailer in Beverly Hills for 32 years, and it's interesting to listen to everyone referring to pop-ups, because in the beginning of time when I started in clothing, I worked in the swap meets. That was my pop-up. And then when I had a luxury retail store, we used to do trunk shows and feature the lines of designers in pop-up situations, and now they're referred to as pop-ups. And I think at the end of the day, we really haven't changed as consumers. We're always trying to make sure that we take our brands and turn our fans into consumers in whatever way we can possibly do that. And it's just interesting to hear the diversity of the products that you have on the panel and how you reach your clientele. And it's true when you say about when a rep tells you, oh, you should buy this because it's our #1 seller, it's so categorized and chiseled down by your demographic and your client base. And the benefit of the pop-up stores and the benefit of the retail brick and mortar is that you can identify your consumer base and then turn it into something else. There are 2 brands that I know of now that are both clothing. One is called Saint Harrigan, and they do wardrobe menswear for women. And all they do are pop-up shops all around the country. And then there's Trunk Club, who started in Chicago, that are all menswear, all online, and now they've opened 4 brick and mortar stores across the country in their most popular areas. So it's interesting, the diversity and how we can just apply it to everything.
Thanks.
So thank you for sharing.
Thank you. I see another question.
Thanks. Coriander, can you talk a little bit more about what things are scheduled to come up? I guess there's a surf theme and how
There's going to be.
Oh my gosh.
Awesome. It's real now.
It's really happening.
Can I be part of this?
Sure. Well, we're definitely going to have a surf show, and we should figure out the scheduling on it because I think it's actually a good spring theme. And it might give me a little more time to work on. We have a show coming up that I try to keep things a little bit secret, but I am very interested in working with a couple of different people in the fine art world, and I very much want to do a show that will be entitled something along the lines of Art X Design, and kind of discussing. I work with a lot of designers who are also fine artists, who were fine artists and became designers, or were designers and became fine artists, who have galleries. And then they go like, I can't show that in your show because my gallery will be pissed. And then, but I can show my design work. And I'm going like, yes, there is a clear line of fine art and design, but there are a lot of designers who are crossing it. And I think that what's happening to Los Angeles in the fine art world and what's happening in the design world are very parallel and very exciting and cross over a lot. So that's another theme. So surf, fine art, and I find people, it's just a chain reaction. I get introduced, I do a lot of boots on the ground. It's very time consuming. It's very heartfelt. And I love it, and I meet a lot of people, and I go to a lot of studio visits, and it really is like friends of friends of friends of friends who, I just get referred to all sorts of different people, and I get reached out to a lot, and I reach out a lot, and I will say I find a lot of people on Instagram. So I'm a Luddite, but I deep creep on Instagram, and it's the most amazing. It's a term I just learned. You deep creep.
It's a good term. I mean,
deep creep, and I find amazingly talented people, and I just reach out to them, and I'm always amazed at, how easy it is to get in touch, and there are so many talents. So, and the ideas just roll through, and they just kind of come together. It's kind of organic. Thank you.
Another question.
Hi, this is from Mark. I'm wondering why you decided not to sell directly to consumers online. Are you worried about returns?
I think consumers are completely different people, and from our standpoint, we're a to the trade company, and the minute you start selling consumers, it affects every part of your company, whether it be warehouse, whether it be boxing, whether it be invoicing, and really customer care. I think because when we're talking about, let's say these are handmade, handcrafted items that we do. And so really when we're talking to an interior designer that's a customer, they understand a lot of this. And when you're talking to a consumer on the phone, it's, I think, a little bit different. So we would have to completely not change what we're doing. We would continue to do what we're doing, but I think we would have to bring in the expertise to handle consumers. I think it's a completely different market. And I've always said that really the home industry, the design industry, is the only industry in the world that hasn't transitioned to the consumer. Because you can buy Ralph Lauren, you can go to Neiman Marcus, you can go to the store, you can go to their outlet, you can go online, you can buy Gucci in many, many places. So we really are a little bit behind the times, but I think it's coming. I do think it's coming, for sure.
And Matt, for you, because you're sort of doing both, I mean, I know you as a manufacturer, it's a lot different shipping a whole order of goods, to a store versus shipping one T-shirt. I mean, how does that affect sort of your back operations?
I mean, this year we actually had to really invest in our infrastructure. Warehousing. We're now using third-party logistics. We have everything. It's beautiful, like what technology does today, even from like 7 years ago when I first started. Because everything's automated. So we get an order online, and it gets sent to the fulfillment center, and it gets sent, and then they send automatic email, and then the people get it, and they're happy. And we don't know anything about the whole process because we spent like 9 months setting this whole process up. Same thing with our retailers. We have the orders come through, they get pushed through the same fulfillment center, and now everyone's pulling from the same inventory. And so like I kind of geek out over things like that because it's like really interesting, but it's really hard to set up a really fluid system because what happens is a lot of times you sell it to a retailer and then the system isn't updated and now you sell it online and now you have to send the email to the person online saying, oh, sorry, we're sold out. And then there they go. Yeah. And you're refunding them, they're not happy, and it's a bad experience. Or do we make the hard decision, which is, oh, we're going to short ship the retailer because they're paying us wholesale, and this person's paying us retail, and then we just short ship them, and then they're pissed too because they're like, I need a medium. I have small and large. And so it's kind of like a give or take. I think now we're in a really good place, but it took us, years of learning and figuring out, and it's expensive. Yeah. It's easy to do it the second time, I hope.
Another question here.
What mix of skills is in the mix more important to success? technical virtuosity, business acumen, people skills?
All of the above.
Sure. Is there anything that you overweight, though, in terms of getting where you want to go?
I think like building we're in an interesting place because I grew the company by myself, and then we've started hiring employees, and now we're up to 10 employees, which so it's kind of a new frontier for us. We're at point B now, getting to point C, and we don't really know what we're doing. And I think that the biggest thing has been like hiring and getting really, really good people who are much better than you at everything that they do. And so, our marketing guy is amazing, and everyone knows we call it our pillars at the company. We've kind of like we've realized that we're almost a creative agency for fashion and not so much a brand, because we have so many little things going on, and they're all so different, and they need different management, and they need to be run differently. And so I think that really for us, it's been really good hiring. I think like it's obviously important to have a good idea and to communicate and not suck, have people like you. But I think like really like understanding how to hire good people that are really good at what they do, and they have the autonomy to do what they need to do well.
I think that's an important point because, now we're talking about in today's world having to be online, on the street, selling to, consumers, selling to retailers, and those are all almost separate businesses in a lot of ways, and you do need to have separate people running each of those businesses. Mark, you had something to add?
I think we're all business owners, right? And I think it's important, extremely important, that you reinvest in your company. And one of the ways you reinvest in your company is through people, but also you have to keep up with your technological point of view. Technology is huge, and you've got to continue to reinvest in that. And back in 08 and 09, when kind of things fell apart, and that's when we invested the most. And so we came out January of 2010 running when everybody else was kind of like this. And I do believe you're right when you talk about different channels. And when we talk about retailers, we talk about wholesale, and we talk about designers, and we talk about consumers. So the different channels are also very, very important.
We have a couple minutes left. Is there any other questions from the audience?
Just I want to say again that when it comes to employees, I always had a philosophy, and I still do, and I say hire the attitude, train the skill.
Thanks. Is there anything else that you guys... it sounds like a lot of work. Anything you guys want to add in closing, before we let everyone go? Any final thoughts?
I just think it's great. I think it's great that this room is full and people are standing because there are no seats, and that Los Angeles is really like showing up. And I
Yes.
think what Mallory is doing, and Francis and Darren and the West Hollywood Design District is totally exciting. Thank you. Thank you for having us.
Thank you for saying that, and thanks for being here. Anyone else with a final thought? It doesn't have to be a compliment.
Darren's so cool.
Hey, you look great, Darren.
I'll tell you what, I want to be in the surf business, and I love LA's weather. It's fantastic.
Yeah, for sure. Well, thank you all for coming. I really appreciate it, and thank my panelists and Woven Accents, and we'll see you at the rest of the day at DIEM. Thank you so much.